Let's watch rising Democratic star Jasmine Crockett come in with some truth bombs on MAGA and the Democratic Party, where it's very much needed moving forward into 2025, that I thought would be a good video to make our lone one to kick off the year. So happy new year to each and every one of you. I hope each and every one of your years are blessed and amazing, and we'll go ahead and jump into this video.
We have someone who doesn't know what he's doing, and this idea of, oh, you're illegal and then you go out and have a child. It's not quite that simple, especially when you have people that are doing things like seeking asylum and people that are saying, listen, I'm just trying to make sure that I can live a better life here in the United States, and I want to do everything that I can to become an American citizen or at least get some sort of legal status. And you have, Trump that goes out there, him and his minions, and they say things like, you know what, we're only going to get rid of the bad ones, right? And so people sit there and they're like, wait a minute, you're going to come to my job where I'm working and I may be paying into taxes or whatever, or my kids are at school. I think that there's going to be a rude awakening really on all sides.
I completely agree with what she's saying here. And to Trump's attack on birthright citizenship and how he wants to try and simplify it to further vilifies the mother, like she knew she's breaking the law and is an illegal immigrant. And first off, like immigrants that are undocumented are illegal in the same way that like you're a criminal for driving without a seatbelt. It's kind of stupid to like make that framing. But what if a woman is here on a work visa and gets pregnant, but then the work visa expires 2 months before she gives birth? What if it's 1 week before? What if it's 7 months before, right? Like you can see these conversations aren't nearly as nuanced as Republicans try to make things to talk about them, because they can only talk about things in like black and white framing ways, right? What if somebody comes on asylum and they're awaiting their case while pregnant, but then they get denied and go into labor before they're deported? Like, again, tons of nuance here mixed with the fact that these aren't decisions made by the children themselves, so why would we punish the children when we have more than the necessary infrastructure to take them in? And by all accounts, they would be American. Like, if being born in America doesn't make you American, it kind of calls into question what these people think being an American means, which when you ask that, it always gets brought back to this kind of white-centered view of it.
I'm curious to know if he's ever been to a jail or a prison. The reality is that these are nothing more than detention camps that look a lot like jails and prisons. I mean, obviously, there's what they call the yard when you go to a prison, and that is an open air facility. But, there's always been a lack of humanity when it comes to immigration and this administration. If people remember the separation before, they may remember that, but they may not remember how much money it cost the United States when we were sued about the fact that these families were separated.
And deportations themselves are a really expensive prospect.
Right. We know, Texas is like, hey, we will go ahead and give you the land to do what you want to do. But we know that there takes officers, right? So we're talking about needing to hire more officers to execute this. We are talking about you can't just throw people into facilities. You've got to make sure that you feed them, got to make sure that you're keeping them healthy.
Right, and those needs expand if you're talking about children and families.
Right, and I mean, first off, for these detention centers he's speaking of, we're talking about billions of dollars in upkeep a year, and this is in like direct cost, direct spend as well. Like with a lot of more costly programs, you see cost offsets or ways that it's going to end up partially or in whole funding itself down the line. So it's more so the funding up front that they need, the number that they're touting, right? But with this, there is no benefit to be had. There's no thing that's going to end up making the government money down the line. It's just flushing billions of dollars down the drain for racism, essentially, for something that then will only further hurt our economy, hurt our economic output, and will have no effect on crime. So it's like, why are we doing this? And hey, I think we know by now when we start putting people in camps based on their race or ethnicity, it's probably a bad thing.
Do you think she was treated fairly?
I mean, it depends on how you define fairly. I was asked a lot about this particular race as someone that obviously serves on the oversight committee. And, while I think that both are absolutely qualified, I do think that within the Democratic caucus, we are really stuck in our old ways of doing things, which is you get there by seniority. And so if you've been there longer, then you get the post. And I don't think that we fully sit there and say, who may be best equipped for this moment? That's not to say that Connolly is not, but I just think that overall, that's what we continue to see out of the House Democratic Caucus.
This is the perfect way to put it, right? It's not like Connolly is unqualified. I mean, he's more than qualified. And it's not like he even has bad politics. He has a rather strong voting record and is typically on the right side of issues. Optically, however, is where most of the issue lies here. I think it sends a message that the Democratic Party needed to wholly reject in terms of bringing back some of its constituency, which is this message of we're going to change the old guard is what they needed. But what they're showing here is we're not going to change anything. Where, as Jasmine said, it's still all about seniority more than politics, communication, optics, aesthetics, relatability, these kinds of things. Just like dedicate your life to this and then maybe it'll pay off and we'll give you this position. But as the public becomes increasingly less trustworthy of the career politician mold, this just seems to be something that's going to further the divide between us and the voting base that we need to regain trust with, where this exact constituency is where AOC thrives, right? She is a left-wing populist. She's anti-establishment through a leftist perspective. Why wouldn't we let her represent that in an oversight position, in like a high-ranking committee position, instead of like saying, no, we're going to go with the same, Bidenite type Democrat? I mean, her communication's on point. Nobody with good politics can question hers. They're great. You're just going to get like conservatives who have terrible politics questioning hers. It was so easily AOC. Like the choice should have been simple. Democrats had already done this a few times over with other lower ranking positions, younger choices unseating and beating out senior members. But here they just couldn't bring themselves to pull the trigger where it would have been the most consequential, which is sad because again, it's an overstep, not the end of the party. Doesn't signal too much again, when especially they had done exactly this with so many appointments before here. They just failed to do it, but they have another chance, Marianne, for the DNC chair to do something great, to speak towards populism, towards being worker first. So let's just see what starts shaping up heading into this new year and which direction the party is ultimately pulled in.